Welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen. You can give us follows on X at Real Zander and at JF McMullen. It's OTA day, everybody. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Tuesday morning where you are set to head down to the NovaCare complex?
Yeah, Big Fangio Day. So Vic will speak before practice, and that should be pretty newsworthy because of all the changes. How he views Jihad Campbell. We'll get to hear it from the horse's mouth. The Bryce Hupp trade, what went wrong. A lot to talk about with Vic Fangio.
Yeah, man, a lot of moving parts on this defensive side of the football. Giant just brought up the Bryce Huff trade. I do want to bring clarity to that. Looks like we learned what the compensation was, Johnny Mac, getting back a conditional fifth-round pick that could become a fourth-round pick. Now, I don't know what the conditions are, but not too bad, I'd say, for the Bryce Huff trade. What do you say?
Yeah, I said fifth-round pick. I think it's going to be a fifth-round pick. We'll see when the contract is filed. My guess is the conditions are going to be tied to playing time more than sacks, but that's just a guess, and that's what we'll see. And if that's the case, you can manipulate it pretty easily. But you get to talk about it, how he likes to get those conditions. Well, it might be a fourth, but my guess is it's going to be stay at fifth, but the Eagles have 13 projected picks, I think, in the draft next year now. So plenty of opportunity, plenty of ammunition to move up and down the board whenever they want. And I start looking at that 2026 draft chest, and when you start thinking about that, and you start to realize, all right, that's what they're waiting for when it comes to, trying to rebuild with cheaper, more cost-effective talent. I think that's the way this is all heading. Understanding you got to pay Jalen Carter. You most likely have to pay Nolan Smith, as we talked about. Down the road, you got to pay Cooper and Quinyon. So I think that draft is going to be very, very important for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to have a lot of picks, John. And as you pointed out, they're getting cheaper. I think it does look like now, obviously when the trade broke, we speculated, is there another move to come? But it does seem like they're kind of just proofing the roster, John, at this point, preparing for what's to come with all those paid contracts upcoming. And do you think they're factoring in the questions at the way the salary cap and the voidable years, the way they can use them? Do you think they're factoring that into their decision-making right now with the way they're doing these contracts and moving people off the books and whatnot?
No, because that's just out in the ether. I mean, they know it's coming, but until collective bargaining is opened, that's not a rule change. I think a lot of people misunderstand that. Right. That's collective bargaining. And that will potentially come when they start jockeying about 18 games. But again, the union's going to fight pretty hard for it and against it. And because their philosophy is voidable years help raise salaries, and there's clear definitive proof that they do. So the union's going to fight very hard against that. So by no means is there any guarantee. Certainly, it's not going to affect the Eagles in the short term at all. And again, you can pivot. You saw how quickly they pivoted off Bryce Hupp. After 1 year, you can pivot pretty quickly when you have to. But for now, their voidable years contracts are all grandfathered in anyway. So I mean, they're going to be part of the situation for a lengthy period of time. Too lengthy when you make a mistake, but when you don't, right, it's a very good thing.
Yeah, I do wonder, John, about it. And I think this is a good off-season topic, maybe not for today on OTA day, but another day, just about the NFL at large, man, and what's going on in the business side of it, how much contracts have exploded and ballooned in the last, John, it wasn't that long ago we paid Carson Wentz. He was the highest paid guy in the NFL. That was like 30 million or something, man. It feels like that was like, It's a
Yeah,
long time ago. So
you talk about the dead money hit they took for Carson Wentz. You know, I
yeah,
remember talking to Andrew Brandt. Andrew and I were like, they'll never take that. Now it looks quaint. The way that, you know, we talked about voidable contracts in 2013. There were $40 million of voidable contract money around the league total. Now there's 2.2 billion mixed up, and that's how quickly things have exploded. And that's just over a decade, obviously. So, yeah, things move very quickly, and as the money balloons up, everything's a share, a revenue share.
right.
Salaries go up. So part of it is baked in, but
Yeah, but the other side of it, John, is the TV, man. Like there's one entity on the planet that is still growing on traditional cable television, and that's the NFL. Every sports league is down, every other cable show is down. It's like the NFL's going like this and traditional TV's going like this. At what point do they intersect and cross? And
yeah, I
that
mean,
leg is not standing on cement. I would say they got to continue to make the right decisions, and at some point, I don't know, like you got 8 networks now, John, bidding and pushing the number way up. Like, at what point does that end? If it ever ends, I don't know. It feels like it would come to an end at some point, but right now they're in a good spot. But I do wonder about that as a whole.
yeah, I've been talking about it for years and years and years because I don't think people understand. And it's pro sports in general. If TV money collapses, the entire industry collapses.
Right.
I mean, the vast majority of money for all these entities, NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, WWE, whatever you want, the vast majority of their revenue comes from TV rights fees. And if they go away, you know, the entire landscape changes. People have been predicting they can't keep paying this money. They can't keep paying it for years and years. But it keeps going up, and it keeps going up, and it keeps going up. However, Major League Baseball was the first one to take a ding. And ESPN said, you know what? This isn't worth it. We're getting out. Now they're going to have to take a lesser deal somewhere else. So it might happen. Now they're still going to get significant money, Major League, but you see that the start of it,
Right.
And now, as you pointed out, the NFL is the only product that keeps going up. But you see their panic when it's down 2%. They panic. Oh, we gotta.
Oh yeah, because
Yeah,
that can lead to a larger crack in the armor.
yeah.
Just that 2%. You know, do you think the introduction and the ramp up of the streaming that they're doing, do you think it's more of a safeguard for that, or do you think it's truly about the growth of the game? It might
Well,
be a safeguard.
I don't think it's a safeguard as much. It's more has to do with the television industry, which has believed that streaming is the future for many years now.
Right. Not a
However,
safeguard, but maybe like a don't put all your eggs in one basket. You know what I mean? Where you're going to get streaming money if the television money does change or go
yeah,
away.
as long as the number remains the same, the name signed in the check doesn't matter. But so it could be, NBC, the
Yeah.
traditional networks, Fox, CBS, ABC, or Amazon, Netflix. As long as they're paying the same amount of money, it doesn't matter. But people in TV have been predicting streaming is going to overtake um, linear television for many years, and it has from a share of viewers. More people watch streaming than watch regular TV now, but the the major products that draw major ratings, it doesn't translate yet, and I don't think they can figure it out, to be honest. Um, because they thought it was going to happen 5 years ago,
Yeah,
and
it's
it
the
still hasn't.
boomers, John. It's your boomer generation that
Yeah,
can't figure out how to
I
flip the
mean,
apps, my
yeah, as
friend.
people my age pass off, maybe it will change, but now it's so fragmented. Um, yeah, I don't think it's ever going to reach the level of linear television.
Yeah, no, I don't either. But it is an interesting talking point. Maybe we'll dive into that more one point in the off season. I do want to welcome everybody in here for on this Tuesday edition. Hit that like button for us. We've had a great crowd all through the off season. It's OTA day. Johnny Mac's heading down to the NovaCare complex to take in the second and final open OTA to reporters. I believe they will be back out there, John, next Tuesday for their mandatory.
Yeah, mandatory
So, and
minicamp.
you'll be present at that, right? On the mandatory.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
So you'll be there. So a couple more here left in the next couple of weeks. But John, today, walk us through it. Give us the rundown. You said it's Vic Fangio Day. What's the schedule look like for the Birds today?
Vic's going to talk before practice at about noon. Practice is about 12:50, and then players, the selected players, are going to talk after. I'm sure the big media blitz for Saquon Barkley. I'm sure he's going to be one of them. If Lane Johnson's around, he'll probably be one of them if he's there. Reed Blankenship, if he's there, maybe trying to predict. That part of it stinks. Pre-COVID, we could grab players off the field. Like I want to talk to Marcus Tate. He signed yesterday. Those are the interesting stories to me. But we don't get to do that these days. So we're at the mercy of who they bring to the podium, and it tends to be star players. Certainly Saquon, I would think, would be one of them, although he's probably tired after yesterday. But he's having quite the run, I should say.
Yeah, big Madden cover, 99 club, Johnny Mac. I mean, Saquon's getting all the love, all the accolades.
By the way, the people that saw the Saquon doing the photo shoot with the backwards hurdle for ES, that he was being lifted up, guys. Yeah. Come on.
Oh, I knew that right away. I was surprised.
It's like he's levitating.
Like he's levitating. I'm like, guys, he's on strings, man. That's what they do in the game. But no, it's still funny, still interesting to watch. Good stuff there for Saquon Barkley. Now heading down to the OTAs today. John, what are you looking to take away from the OTA today, if anything? I know there's not much, but I think the rookies are worth watching. I mean, you just brought up Marcus Tate, man. How many offensive linemen, John, does this football team need? It's unbelievable. But he was a guy that was in there for the tryout or whatever you want to call it with the rookie minicamp, right? Is that where Marcus Tate came from?
Yeah. He was the tryout
but
player.
he signed now yesterday. That's a lot of offensive linemen for this team, John.
Yeah. And, you give a bunch to Jeff Stoutland, and you expect that a couple will come out of it and can help you. So just add another one to the list. But had an open spot because of the Hupp trade. And it's always good to reward people, try out players. I've always said that the Eagles like to sign one or two. They signed Giles Jackson earlier because you want to signal, look, it's a meritocracy. If you perform well, we'll reward you. So, it's always good to reward players on the back end of the roster. But 90th man, essentially. Odds are against him. Upside is probably the practice squad, but was a good player at Clemson on a good team. You never know. Maybe something develops down the road.
A lot of offensive linemen. Another one added for Jeff Stoutland. We'll see what they're able to do. Just get one position that you need to fill for the starting role. And then obviously you'll have your backups and your reserve players. But they got a lot of guys in that room. I think some of them are going to have to go. We'll see how that shakes out. But John, going down to OTAs today, what's piquing your interest? For me, it's the rookies. I'm trying to get a better sense on the rookies and who's going to contribute this year. Jahad Campbell's obviously a tough one to put a finger on because just injured. So you don't know when he's going to be back or what it's going to be, but I'm trying to get a gauge on the rookies. What are you, John, as you head down there to talk to Vic and see the second OTA you'll see this summer?
Yeah, well, I think the important thing with Campbell is to listen what Vic says about the player. Because you're not going to get a beat on him from practice until hopefully the summer. And hopefully he can get back at some point during training camp. But I think Makuba is interesting, especially if Reed Blankenship is back, because if Reed is back and participating, then you get a better feel because they were just rotating guys in and out. Everybody got first team snaps because you didn't have Reed there. So it started last week with Sidney Brown and Andrew Makuba together. My assumption is if Reed's there, Sidney will get the first rep. But again, that's not the be all end all. So it'll be interesting to see how much they mix Makuba in as far as that goes. And the other rookies, I mean, I think it's pretty clear where they're going to be because it's a deep and talented team. And the other rookies are all potential backups. You know, Ty Robinson should be the fourth guy on the interior if everything goes to plan. McWilliams, it'll be interesting to see when they pull the trigger on him, if they even do it, and play him inside. They started him outside. Smile Munden's going to be a second team guy pretty much all summer, you know, without Nakobe Dean there. We know that. Drew Kendall's going to be a backup center. We know that. Kyle McCord, when does he start to, you know, rise up over Dorian Thompson-Robinson? Because I think that's going to happen at some point. And then, you know, Antoine Powell-Ryland, I think, is more interesting post Bryce Huff trade than pre-Bryce Huff trade. I think everybody's got a shot, even a sixth-rounder. You know, if you can get to the passer, they're gonna be interested in you.
Yeah, and Anton Powell-Ryland certainly could do that at college. He was one of the most talked about picks this year because of that college production. I think he was their last pick, right? Their very last pick of the draft. Yeah. So we'll see. I don't want to put too much stock in him, but I do think you're right. I mean, with that edge rusher room, where it is right now, maybe he's a guy that could make some headway in a day like today. But we will see. John, anything else that you're looking at down there? I know we've talked extensively about the edge rushers, the youngsters on this football team. It's mainly defense. I mean, you know, this whole camp stuff is, what are we watching on the offense, right? I mean, you're bringing back everybody except the right guard.
Yeah, right guard.
I mean,
that's about it. So we'll see more of what Tyler Steen, you know, to me, it looks like it's going to be Tyler Steen versus Kenyon Green. That's the early indications. And if they both falter, then you got Matt Pryor to just break the glass in case of emergency. I think that's the way they're headed. That's the way they're thinking. And I hope as Tyler can seize control of that job. But you know, Kenyon Green's got a lot, as Howie would say, a lot of traits in his body that made him the 15th pick in the draft. But, you know, you got to rebuild him up because he's probably shaken from a confidence standpoint because of how poorly things went in Houston. You know, his PFF grades were just abysmal. I think he was 77 out of 77. 1 year, 47 quarterback pressures, 12 penalties. Yeah, that's a big reclamation project. I know people point to Mekhi Becton and say he was a big he didn't play that poorly.
No,
he was
no. But Jeff Dallin, I mean, like you just said, though, he is familiar with good traits, you know, with a lot of bad tape, you know. So maybe he can do something with Kenyon Green. I don't know. What's your confidence level on that? Do you think Kenyon Green has a chance to start?
Well, I'm not high on Tyler Steen that much. So I think everybody, you know, for me, if I'm a betting man, I'm going to bet on Matt Pryor.
Yeah.
At some point they say, you know what, we're just gonna put the guy we know that can play. But we'll see how it shakes out. You know, you want to shoot for the stars. And those guys have a bigger upside, Steen and Green. So
why are you down on Steen?
I just don't think he's played that well. And I think he's a natural tackle. I don't think he's comfortable inside. I mean, he played tackle throughout his entire college career, and he was a very good tackle. but his arms were too short from NFL standards. So they projected him inside, and I just don't think he's an inside player. I think he's a tackle. At least he feels like a tackle. And sometimes that's tough to overcome. You know, Mackay overcame it. He was like, yeah, I'll play inside. We know Andre Dillard couldn't move from the left tackle to right tackle. Everybody's different. And I just
good.
I just don't think he's comfortable inside.
Might be right about that. The interesting part about Steen is, you know, he was taken at 65 overall, John, which is the first pick of the 3rd round. Andrew Makubo was taken at 64, and everybody's like 2nd round or 3rd rounder. I'm like,
I know. I say it all the time.
Away, man. So that Tyler Steen pick is kind of, I mean, if he doesn't get that starting job this year and at least be somewhat effective, I think that would be a missed pick. Now it's okay. You're not going to hit on every single pick, but that would be one of the few misses that they've had in recent years, especially on the offensive line.
Yeah. You know, he's not a bad player. I'm not trying to say that. He's not Kenyon Green, you know, who's completely faltered. But in his time, you know, it hasn't played that well. And I think a lot of it is what I just said. I think he's more comfortable playing outside. And the few chances he's gotten out there, you can kind of see it. And then, you know, does Jeff Stoutland want the bigger Mekhi Becton like body? It's funny when you talk about 6'5", 6'6", 320-pound people, and you say, do you need a bigger body?
Right.
But, you know, if you go back to Brandon Brooks, and, you know, he was 350 at times during his playing weight, big, powerful guy. That's who I'm comparing. And Mekhi, who is obviously can block out the sun and bench press it as well. And Pryor would be closer to that. Not that he would be that, because he doesn't have quite that size, but plus he's got the old man strength from playing in this league for a long time. And he had a good year playing that exact position last year. So a little bit older, you know, obviously not a long-term answer, but the Eagles have had no problem rotating that position.
We'll see what they end up doing there. A lot of question marks at that position, but the only question mark on offense, as we just said, there's not much to look for on the offense other than the natural evolution that the offense takes this year with now Kevin Patullo coming in. John, do you think that's a good, I mean, I do think that's an interesting question, but I've kind of become numb to the changes at offensive coordinator because they're so prominent and they're so consistent on this football team. To me, it's Jalen Hurts. All right. That's our offensive coordinator. There's insert name, but I've become more uninterested in the offensive coordinator because of the way it's developed in the last several years. Am I wrong to do that?
No, I've been talking about it for years. And now the people that are concerned about it, I mean, shouldn't they have been satiated by the fact you can bring somebody from outside the building and win the Super Bowl? So that proves,
right.
I mean, how long have I been screaming it's about execution? It's not about motion. It's not about anything you want. Creativity,
right?
Whatever word, whatever adjective you want to use to describe what you think they need, it's about execution. They're fine when they execute. They're impossible to stop when they execute with their dull, uncreative offense. You saw it, and they won the Super Bowl. So shouldn't that highlight, hey, maybe it is about execution?
Well, it is definitely about execution, but I mean, I don't know. This is gonna stir the pot a little bit, this question, but I'll ask it anyway because I do think it's a factor, and I wonder what the inside of the organization thinks about it. Do you think the way that they ran their offense last year was simply because of the success they were having, or do you think it was an indictment on Jalen Hurts because he was ineffective in managing the offense when they weren't so reliant on the run game in the first 4 weeks?
Well, they changed the offense because they weren't happy with the way Jalen was
Right.
playing. I mean, that's self-evident. Anybody who doesn't understand that, I apologize, but that's what happened. And I, at the time, said it was unfair. So, I thought it was completely unfair. But, I mean, it worked. So it's hard to complain about it. And when you have a season like Saquon had, nobody's complaining. But yeah, that's what happened. Sure. I mean, that's what happened. They scaled back the offense because they weren't happy with the way it was going. And they said, yeah, we're going to lean on Saquon in the offensive line. That's what happened. And I don't think they were worried about AJ's performance or Devontae's performance or even Dallas's performance. So do the math.
I just wonder how the league views it. I mean, Kellen Moore walked out of here with a head coaching job,
Well, I would say owners are closer to fans than anything else. And if you win a Super Bowl, they want you. That's it. That's it.
This offensive question is interesting. I can't wait to see what they end up doing this year, what they end up trying to do, because I can't get a gauge on whether they're happy with the play of the quarterback because they were so successful doing everything else, and Jalen just is a chameleon and does what he needs to do for the team to win based on whatever given circumstances he's had throughout the first 4 years of starting, or if they're upset that he can't get A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith involved in the game as much as he would have liked to in those first 4 weeks that then required them to become a run-first team, which I think was the right move anyway. But that's what makes it. There's so much gray area with the conversation.
I don't think there's much gray area. They're trying to win games. I always said there's a difference between Howie and Nick. Nick's trying to win games.
But you can you can be a running offense because you don't believe in your quarterback, but you can also be a running offense because you got the best offensive line and the best running back in football. I think it might be a little bit of both, but where does the truth lie between those two things?
Well, the truth lies that they believe the best way to win games was to lean on Saquon Barkley and the offensive line. And the truth, that the success says they were right. The coaching staff. Could they have won the other way? Maybe. They were that talented. That's the question. Could they have won playing the same way they were playing the first 4 weeks? Maybe. Maybe things settle down. Maybe you start playing better football. So that's the unanswered question. But again, when I brought up PFF and ranking the Eagles the best roster in the NFL, they mentioned some of the problems. When they said biggest weakness in 2024, passing game. Much of the burden falls on quarterback Jalen Hurts, who ranked 23rd among qualifiers in passing grade, despite the outstanding final 2 games because they combined the playoffs, everything. He gets credit for that. Still 23rd. The biggest drop-off the biggest issue was the drop-back game non-play action, where he's 27th in the NFL. It's 32 teams. There's 32 starters. So yeah, I unfortunately went down this route. People are burying their heads about it because they won the Super Bowl. Why did they hire Kellen Moore? Because they won the Super Bowl. Again, imagine Kellen Moore's here. If Jalen Carter doesn't save the season, not getting a job unless he wins the Super Bowl. Not even getting an interview with New Orleans. That's how quickly things shift. Brian Johnson has the same offense, number 8 versus number 8. He's out on his ass because the defense was number 31 instead of number 1. Owners are more, not all owners. Jeffrey's among the best, but a lot of them are not the most contextually sound people. So they look at, this team won the Super Bowl. And this is in history, let's go get stuff from them, whether it's players or coaches or executives. Let's go. You've seen it with the Eagles' constant attrition. On the field, off the field, in the executive suite, every part, because they won the Super Bowl.
Do you personally have concerns about Jalen Hurts running this offense coming into this year?
No, they're going to run the same offense. He's proven he's effective in this offense. That's all that matters.
He's been a little bit of a chameleon, don't you agree? I mean, the offense has looked kind of different each year of his starting. I mean, but it's the same, but the intro of what they run between the lines has shifted and has required him to be a different quarterback each year, I think, at least.
I think it's been astonishingly the same, which is what I talked out. They revert back to where they are because they're building the offense.
If Jalen was last year, if he did that in 22, they wouldn't have been in the Super Bowl.
Well, he had a better year in 2022.
Right.
Again, it depends. Yes, he's been a
but
different
I do think it called on him to be better, right? Like last year after the bye week, they became so run dominant. They weren't even calling on him to step up like he had.
Well, last year it was an extreme. They were very run dominant in 2022 as well. And really 2021. They've been very run dominant since week 7 of the Nick Sirianni era. It just elevated to another level because of the success of Saquon Barkley and the difference between Saquon and Miles Sanders or DeAndre Swift. They had more 200-yard rushing games than any team in the NFL over the 3 seasons of Nick Sirianni's era before Saquon got here. They've always been run heavy because they're building the offense around the quarterback. Kevin Patullo talked about this last week with Tyler Thigpen. You build the offense, and Nick is very proud of this. He talked about his time in Indianapolis and what they went through. Andrew Luck's early retirement, late, and they had to ship the entire offense for Jacoby Brissett, who they didn't really want to be the starter. And then they went out and got Phillip Rivers. So 3 consecutive years, 3 different quarterbacks, 3 different styles, and they built 3 different offenses. You build the offense, at least good coaches, you build the offense around the talent you have. And that starts with the quarterback. And that's what Kevin was talking about last week with Tyler Thigpen when he was with Kansas City. And that's where he learned it from Chan Gailey. He was like, basically came in the next day. Their starting quarterback got hurt. Their backup quarterback got hurt. And they were down to Tyler Thigpen, their 3rd string quarterback. And he came in the next day, erased everything on the whiteboard, had a blank whiteboard and said, we got to revamp this whole offense to take advantage of what this particular player does well. That's what good coaches do. And that's why all the talk, and not to say you can't evolve, they spent all off season trying to evolve with Kellen Moore and bringing in some of Kellen Moore's processes and the motion and the more motion, and which he likes. And you'll see more of it in New Orleans this year because he likes it. And he talked about that last year at his introductory press conference, because I was the one who asked the question.
Right.
He said he talked about his history as a coach and the people that sort of built him and defined him and he learned from, and motion was a big part of it. That's why it's been a big part of his career. But he was a smart enough coach to scale it back, to take advantage of the players he had in Philadelphia. And that's what happened.
So is that simply a circumstantial thing where he relied on Saquon and the offensive line, or is it an indictment on Jalen Hurts? Because you cannot say that they didn't have the weapons to have a successful passing game like Kellen Moore maybe once desired. You can't say that. I mean, they had it. They had A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas guy. They got the best weapons in passing game in all football.
They had all the weapons in the world, but they felt that their best way to win was the way they went, and they were proven correct.
Is that an indictment on the quarterback?
I mean, a little bit, depending on what people look at, because people want if you're obsessed with getting a high volume thrower, you're not going to get that here. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen. Can it get better? Sure, it can get better. Individual weeks, can it be good? Sure, like the championship game in the Super Bowl. You're also going to have the weeks where it's Carolina, it's, Baltimore, it's Los Angeles, it's Green Bay. You're also going to have those weeks. So, but they're winning games. And to Nick's credit, he talks about with Saquon, with everybody's like, how can you give him the ball that much? 400 touch. Look at the history. He's trying to win a game.
John, last season here on Birds 365, you questioned whether early in the year, whether the team could run their way all the way to the finish line, whether the modern NFL would eventually catch up to them, because most teams thrive on moving the ball through the air. That's the modern game. Do you believe they can win another Super Bowl the way they ran their offense last year? Or do you believe evolution and a different look is required to get back to that pinnacle?
Well, that's typical with Howie. I think he zigged when everybody zagged. And, I thought, and I've been talking about this for a while, I thought it would be Belichick, to be honest, that would wake up one day and say, hey, everybody's throwing out like boxes. Everybody's got 220-pound linebackers. Why don't we get a fullback and just run it down their throats?
Yeah.
And the Eagles didn't do the fullback part of it, but a little bit with Ben Van Sumeren for a small portion. But the Eagles just bullied people. So it's still, from a larger perspective, and the analytics people will tell you, and they're right, it's still long term, it still decreases your margin of error, because I always talk about margin of error, because you have to play a certain way. You have to play with the lead. You have to be a very good team for the most part. If you're down 10 in the fourth quarter, you can't run the ball. So everything has to align. And that's when people like me say, it's probably not likely that's going to happen. But not likely is not can't. It's just not likely. It remains not likely again this year. Doesn't mean can't. But you can argue every team's not likely to win the Super Bowl. So from that standpoint, the Eagles feel for their team and their offensive line and their running back that that's the proper way to go about it. And until somebody stops it, and I'm not talking about stopping Saquon, because look, Saquon's presence is a big reason why the passing game was opened up in Washington. So if you have to spend so many attributes to stop him, and then it becomes just pitch and catch, well, that's part of it as well. But, again, you have to have the lead to play that way. Because if you don't have the lead, you're running back, you're big time bell cow back, whether it's Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley. You want to go back to Jim Brown. You want to go back to my guy, Adrian Peterson. Any running back you want to. They're not relevant if you're down 10 or 14 points in the fourth quarter.
Which brings the defense into the conversation, John. The number one defense in the NFL was also one of the reasons they were able to thrive the way they did offensively last year.
Yeah. Look at they had literally the 8th offense in 2023 and the 8th ranked offense in 2024.
Yeah, right. Look at the difference.
I mean,
very different. I mean, not very different, but different styles.
Yeah, they were better balanced in 2023. To be honest.
Yeah, they collapsed at the end, and that obviously tainted everybody's view of it.
Yeah, they collapsed. The defense collapsed. The offense didn't collapse. They had some bad games, just like they had some bad games this year. But their bad games last year, not last year, 2023, were not as bad as their worst games in 2024. In a lot of ways, in a lot of metrics, you can say the 2023 offense was better than the 2024 offense. However, 31st ranked defense,
First.
32nd. I think they were dead last in pass defense, or they were 31st. I think they were 31st in pass defense, like 27th overall, something like that.
Low is the bottom line. They were very low.
They were terrible, especially in the second half, especially after the shift from Sean Desai to Matt Patricia. They were an absolute disaster. This is a complimentary game. The Eagles had the number one defense in the NFL. Their first number one defense since Bud Carson. They made plays almost every week. At the end of the season, Zach Bone was making a play every week. We talked about Jalen Carter in the Rams game. Also, the punches, the turnovers, 9 drives. That is, to me, the statistic of the entire 2024 Super Bowl season. One game of every game they played during last season. Everybody, not just the Eagles, not just the Chiefs, every single NFL game, no offense, went 9 drives without crossing midfield. The Eagles did that to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
It's unbelievable. And here we are talking about all the changes on the defense, and the defense maybe was a bigger part of winning the Super Bowl than the offense, which could present some issues for the 2025 Eagles. No?
Sure. I mean, I find it very hard to believe you can replace Milt Williams, Josh Sweat, Darius Slay, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Isaiah Rodgers, Oren Burks, and not impact you. And then the way guys played, N'Kobe having a career. How many guys had career years? Had their best seasons. Nolan Smith. We're all, the assumption that guys are going to have the same year or get better. Well, I believe that about Jalen Carter, but everybody else, is Zach Bone going to be able to match last year?
It's tough.
He
set a high bar.
Yeah. It's like going out, scoring a 50-point game and saying, all right, go do it again.
It's going to be very interesting to see how this season unfolds. I see a lot of people in the chat. I'll take a couple of comments from you guys. I know this is one of those conversations that gets you riled up, but if you're in there in the chat and you're crying, you're a grown adult, okay? You can handle a conversation about a football team that doesn't reaffirm everything you think, okay? It's okay. It's all right. It's a conversation about a football team, guys. It's all good. But I do think the conversation is a good one, and I think it does, show the complexity of winning in the NFL and how many different things go into it and how much it can change and how much nuance there is there. But I do think the offense is going to need to be different this year. I do. In my heart, I believe they're going to have to be a more high-powered offense in a multitude of ways next year if they want to have the type of success that they had last year, even if it looks different. I believe that's going to be required. Now, maybe I'm off. Maybe they'll be able to do the same thing and run all over everybody. Their defense will be great, and they'll be able to kind of, manhandle everybody on their way to a Super Bowl. Maybe. I think it's going to require a different version of the offense, and I'm curious to see if they get there or they achieve it. Let's get to some super chats here. Rashid Mixon checks in. What's up, Rashid? Thank you for your 3 supers today. 3 straight from Rashid we got here in the show. Rashid says, everything has context. A.J. Brown played 1 of 4 first games. Passing game looked bad without wide receiver 1 and new coordinators. They switched the way they play. Yeah, as John's talked about extensively, he thought they
talked about it constantly. I thought it was unfair for that exact reason. Thought it was unfair. But it's hard to argue it was unfair because it was tremendously successful now. But at the time, I thought it was completely a complete overreaction and completely unfair, especially coming off the Tampa game, where not only didn't you have AJ, you didn't have Devontae Smith or Lane Johnson. I thought it was a complete overreaction. I thought it was unfair to the quarterback. I hope everybody's listening to that. And They won 16 of 17 games. So I got to give Nick some credit for that.
Yeah. All right. Rashid again follows up. Also, let's stop it like he can't run the offense passing the ball. I seen him passing 2 years straight, 22 and 23. Now he asking, can he run the offense? Well, I mean, I think it's a fair question to pose, Rashid.
I didn't ask, can he run the offense?
Well, I'm asking the question. They changed, Rashid. Did they change the offense after week 4 last year or not? AJ Brown in there or not? Yes, they did. They took the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands. Can they put the ball back in his hands and go and win the Super Bowl? That's a fair question. If you don't think it is, then I got a problem. Then that's your problem. Rashid.
Oh yeah, it's a very fair question, but I have no doubts that it can run the offense. The build-up Eagles offense is what they call it. You know, that's what Kevin said again. That's what Kellen Moore said. It's not my offense; it's build-up Eagles offense.
Yeah,
and what that means is,
AKA, it's Jalen Hurts' offense.
Yeah, they build around, and they should build it around the coach. They should build it around the strengths of the quarterback. That's what they should do, and that's what they've done under Nick Sirianni, Shane Steichen, Brian Johnson, Kellen Moore, and now Kevin. They'll do it with Kevin Patullo, and it'll look very familiar. And there's a reason for that, because they're building it around the strengths of the quarterback, and that's what they should do.
Rashid follows up again. Rashid, again, thank you for the love, brother. Appreciate it. Injury to AJ in the first game caused the pass game to look crazy. They changed the offense and never got the chance in new offense to show that they can pass. Well, they did at the end of the year. That's certainly a feather in their cap. But, extrapolate that across the course of a full year. It's fair to wonder if they can achieve the consistency needed across a bigger portion of games to win that way. I think that's still a fair question.
Well, to win that way every week, and they don't have to. So it's not a concern.
No, but again, last year, John, the reason they were able to win that way so consistently is why? Because they had the number 1 defense in football.
So here's the question.
Have that this year, what do you have to do to win those games?
Well, Saquon Barkley's probably not going to get 2,500 yards, but he's still Saquon Barkley. He's still going to have a tremendous impact as long as he's healthy. The question becomes, what do you do if you don't have that? If he gets injured and it becomes Will Shipley or AJ Dillon, then what happens? Then that if you don't have the number 1 defense playing complementary football and you got to go out and score 30 points every week to win, what happens? Are they capable of doing that? I know they're skill position players. The AJ and Devontae and Dallas are capable of doing it. Is the quarterback capable of being a high volume thrower, like the true high volume throwers in the NFL? For a game, sure. Over a full season, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, no, he's not. That's not the kind of quarterback he is. I don't want him to be something he's not either.
I'm saying if you have to.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I agree with you. I don't disagree with you at all. But what do you think, John, coming into this season? And I'll laugh at the people who say, "Oh, there's nothing you need to improve." What do you think Jalen Hurts needs to improve coming into this season?
Well, right off, the simple drop back game, because everything is focused on, third and 7, put your foot in the ground, deliver the football. He's got to improve on that. When we talk about, at the end of the season last year, and I am going to pat myself on the back a little before the Super Bowl, I said, "Epic, Spagnuolo's coming, just run go routes." So he needs to get better, and it worked to perfection. He needs to get better with sight adjustments, and because that's not going to work consistently over 20 games or 21 games, just go routes. I said, for one game, it worked brilliantly. You can go back to the Seattle game in 2023. That's what they did. They said, fuck it, and just ran a go route and ignored. And he was late with the ball, and they lose the game because of it. You know, he's got to get better with sight adjustments. So those would be the two most obvious things. And that's borne out, as I said, you know, 27th in the NFL, non-play action, 27th ranked passer in the NFL. It's got to be better. It's not wrong.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with saying that. It's absurd that people can't say that.
No, I think it's all good conversation, good talking points. I mean, it's football. It's a game full of nuance and context, and there's a lot of it as to why the Eagles won last year and what they'll need to do to win in the upcoming years. And we're going to talk about it all here on Birds 365. We appreciate everybody in the chat. Hit that like button for those who agree, disagree. We love you all. As always, we appreciate the conversation, and we'll continue to have it here on Birds 365. Hit that like button for us. In hour number 2, we're going to have Les Bowen join the show. We even had Les on in a little bit, so I'm very excited to talk to Les, see what he thinks of the offseason. Les Bowen, what they've done, whether they're ready to go back and repeat, what he's looking for to come out of OTA. So we'll talk to him coming up. But when we come back from the break, we are going to talk a little defense, just talked a lot of offense here in the opening segment here. John will be heading down right after practice, right, John? Vic Fangio is set to speak, what, at 12:50, I believe?
Yeah, as soon as the show is over, I'm gonna be heading down there.
Yeah, good stuff. So Johnny Mac will be down there today. Appreciate all you guys staying locked in here on Birds 365. Hit that like button. And then again, I told you yesterday, for those who missed it, the Wildwoods is back. All right, so we got 2 spots in the stop set for the Wildwoods. We appreciate them coming back on board for the summer here on JAKIB Sports. And check out their spots and make sure you check them out and go and get your vacation in at the Wildwoods. Great place to go, as always, in the summer. So awesome stuff there. Appreciate all of you guys listening. We'll be right back in 3 minutes.